Now let me be clear.
Resident Evil 4 Remake is a good game. I'm not in any way insinuating that it isn't. It is better written and more coherent as a sequel than the original. Separate Ways integrates all the elements I initially felt the game was missing. But there is one thing that makes me prefer the original. The storied DNA that makes it more than the sum of its parts. You see, when I'm playing Resident Evil 4 Remake, I'm playing the sequel to Resident Evil 2 Remake. But when I'm playing the original, I'm playing an alternate version of 3 total games. I made a series years ago about this, and I'll link it down below. For a more clinical dissection of RE4's creation, check those out. Today, I'm going to give you a generalized version of how RE4's development is the best part about it. After the release of RE3 Nemesis, the development of Resident Evil 4 kicked off. Having staff from various parts of Capcom, including the original RE3 development team, the environment was one of chaos. Beautiful chaos. Chaos of ideas. The first workable idea took the form of a story involving a police detective called Tony Redgrave, investigating an Umbrella Castle, only to discover he was infected with a virus. This Umbrella virus gives Tony supernatural abilities, which he uses to fight his way deeper into the castle, discovering his origins as Spencer's son. At this point, the game began to deviate so much from Resident Evil's roots that Shinji Mikami just said to turn this into its own thing. The next working concept came from the writer of Resident Evil 3 and involved Leon S. Kennedy fighting his way down an Umbrella Castle as a young woman and her superpowered virus-infused dog fought their way up to find him, and hopefully escape altogether. This script would be torn apart and rearranged, both for Resident Evil 4 and a potential sequel for the Clock Tower series. After the conceptual period in 1999, completed games and scrapped concepts of Resident Evil 4 came to public light. Before we talk about the games that got made, let's talk more about the ones that didn't. The Fog build of Resident Evil 4 included an infected Leon S. Kennedy fighting to survive an Umbrella Castle and airship. With one of his arms disabled from the virus, Leon would have to one-hand a deagle to fight off the ominous Dark Fog pursuer. This was scrapped because the GameCube could just not handle the fog. The Hallucination and Hookman build involved Leon getting infected with a mind-bending virus that would make it harder to discern reality from hallucinations. Leon would fight possessed puppets and knights while fighting off the ghostly Hookman pursuer. What's interesting is that we see the transitionary period between the traditional camera angles and the over-the-shoulder aiming. This is also where we see the introduction of the laser and QuickTime events. Leon's SIG P226 wouldn't be usable though until the RE4 remake.
Hey, it's that dog.
Devil May Cry was the first Resident Evil 4 draft to be fully realized. It is chock full of elements included both in Resident Evil 4's final release and the unreleased builds. Tony
Dante
fights against demonic puppets, utilizes an item shop to buy weapon upgrades, and traverses a gothic castle full of traps and secrets. I also shouldn't have to mention the blatant visual similarities at play here. Tony
Dante
also served as the groundwork for Leon's new cocky, cool persona. Remember that script with Leon, the girl, and the superdog? Parts of that, like the girl, castle, and even the helpful dog, made it into the final release of Resident Evil 4. Albeit very reworked versions of those ideas. A more true-to-form realization scraps Leon and the RE viruses and instead takes a more magical route, a la Devil May Cry. Haunting Ground sees Fiona Belli and her furry companion Huey making their escape from twisted alchemists living in a secluded castle. Visual parallels such as room layouts, color schemes, a twisted puppet room, and assets directly used in both RE4 and Devil May Cry are abundant. The most notable of these being Huey, saving your ass in Resident Evil 4, and effects like floating orbs also seen in Devil May Cry. Not to mention Fiona sharing similar render poses and very similar animations with Ashley. This brings us to Resident Evil 4. If you play Devil May Cry and Haunting Ground, it's impossible not to hear Tony
Dante.
when Leon talks. It's impossible to not see Fiona in Ashley's movements. And it's an extra challenge not to get overhyped when you see Huey literally save your ass jumping straight out of Haunting Ground to return the favor for you helping him just like he did for Fiona. Every sound, visual, and design choice can be traced to those games, and right back to each other. It's cool because RE4 is like 3 different games in one. The amount of connections and references between these 3 titles make up this weird web of DNA where it's like neither one of them could truly exist as it is without the other. I don't hear Dante. I don't see Fiona. And while I can still call him Huey, he feels further from Belly Castle than he ever was. The remake is like a distant cousin to those older RE4 builds. Again, not a bad game, but the creation of the remake is much more linear. It's born of the RE2 remake, and all of the new Capcom games stem from RE7. If anything, instead of that weird web of DNA, it's more like just a drip feed from RE7's teat. If you don't believe me, check out the new water room. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant the mold room. And while I'll probably make a video about the games that rose from RE7's primordial soup, I don't feel it's as interesting as the OG RE4's development. I'm constantly involved in new creative projects, and it's very normal to see one major project birth successors. But to be working on a project that has teams splinter off into entirely new projects during the same project's development is wild. I feel like 1999 to 2005 Capcom really had something special going on with this approach. It's apex creativity, and so much better than the whole idea of majority rules designed by committee layout that I've grown accustomed to in the projects I've had to work on. There's something special about just saying, this isn't what we need here, but don't stop. Go off on your own and make it its own thing. And I think that's why I feel the sudden compulsion to bring up something that I already made a video series on. Please go check that out. It's a little rougher in terms of the editing because it's an older video, but if you watch those, you'll truly understand how Resident Evil 4, Devil May Cry, and Haunting Ground are all 3 of a kind.
This is Solid Snake. Hey, subscribe to Pliskin Boy. God damn it.
You heard him.